Thank you to those of you who are just joining. We are just going to wait a few more minutes for others to join. We'll begin shortly. Thank you to those of you who are just joining. We're going to begin momentarily. Well, I want to thank you all for joining. To be thoughtful of everybody's time, we are going to begin. We are recording today. We've had several media outlets request that we record it. They could not join live today. So we are recording this. If you are a member of the media and you would like a recording, please just drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure to get that over to you. My name is Kristen Strome. I serve as the president and CEO of the Common Sense Institute, and I'm thrilled to be unveiling our phase 2 report of our homelessness project in partnership with the University of Colorado, Denver InWorks Innovation Lab. So this is a community partnership. We have partnered on both phases of this report with CU Denver, and really looking forward to highlight these findings. As a reminder, this is a 2-phase approach. Phase 1, which we conducted in August and released in August, was an economic analysis that really looked at the economic footprint of the homelessness ecosystem in the Metro Denver area. Phase 2, which we are unveiling today, and I did drop in the chat the full link to the report, is a deeper dive that looks at a complete systems map that CU Denver took the lead on and built, looking at where we might have some different opportunities, additional investments that could look at the root cause and problems of the homelessness issue. And the most, I think, important component of this report is that there is a prioritized set of recommendations to help address and solve this critical issue moving forward. If you were on the press conference call in August, you'll recall that we actually had a 3rd phase to this work at that time. What we've done is we've actually merged that phase 3 into this phase 2. And so, as I said, the full systems map can be found in the chat. It is quite large, and I know Dan and his team will be diving into that a little bit further as well. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dan Griner with CU Denver. He's an InWorks Fellow. He's the Director of Design, Innovation, and Strategy for the University of Colorado Denver InWorks. He brings to that role 25 years of experience in design, leadership in a variety of fields, including product design, medical products, zoo environments, playgrounds, digital projects, and innovations. This varied experience has helped him communicate abstract ideas to diverse audiences and adapting processes to fit the need of differentiated users and take on unique challenges. And I think this issue for sure, Dan, is a unique challenge that we are all faced with and helping address. So Dan, with that, I will turn it over to you to unveil the phase 2 ecosystem system map and analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And thank you all for coming here to spend your Monday morning on such an important topic for our community. If we could advance the slide. So this is the team who has helped us with this report under the direction of Professor Kristen Wood. My co-authors, Kelsey Folds and Dr. Ariane Colopy, as well as the very skilled student assistants who helped us with reaching out and aided us in many of our interviews with stakeholders. Some of our project goals in doing this work were to really take that qualitative approach and meet with stakeholders, meet with influencers, meet with those who are experiencing homelessness to create this systems map and visualize the system, see what needs more support, see where opportunities remain. This map also helped us to identify recommendations for issues, for solutions, as well as how we can amplify efforts that are currently underway. We used a 7-county kind of approach to the Metro Denver area, and over a 3-month period conducted those interviews. All the data that we used to create our systems map was anonymized, but was sent to those stakeholders for feedback and to make any edits on any information we gathered. Some of the key findings, things that rose to the top. Housing affordability and accessibility are the largest blockers to long-term solutions across all types of homelessness. There are many types and ways to become homeless and for people to find themselves in a vulnerable state, and there are much fewer ways out of that situation. Trust in the system and the barriers, trust in the system and the services and the barriers that exist there have been a challenge for those who experience homelessness. Stronger collaborations and partnerships at every level are a must for continued growth and better outcomes. Increasing reliance on technical solutions for the public present access challenges for those experiencing homelessness. Skilled paid staff are in short supply, and this presents a challenge to consistent, effective management and running of organizations. And then finally, positive outcomes for each individual experiencing homelessness or in danger of becoming homeless. These vary widely and require a more educated understanding of the many types of people that are represented and the needs that they have. And there's another link to our systems map, which I hope you'll take a look at. We'll show here in the next slide briefly. So you can see there's a lot of different points of information and a lot of interconnected pieces, as with any systems map. The map is broken into 8 separate sections, which we have combined into different types of recommendations. So we'll go into those next. So the first one, housing affordability and accessibility. These are 2 separate areas of the map, but we join them together for our recommendation here. So here our recommendations come out in the form of a how might we question, because none of these things are solved. We still need more innovation and more thought behind them. However, we've given some bullets of things that are underway. How might we improve pathways to affordable housing options that are equitably accessible for all residents in the Metro Denver area, regardless of what affordability looks like for each individual? Number 1, build more homes, every type, and increase population density, help understand that in order for more people to be housed, we need to build more houses. Reducing costs with innovative approaches. Things like the social impact bond have helped to show the value of a housing first approach that first gets people off the street, but then provides needed services that help them to make good choices long term. And then also providing removing some of the issues that exist within the system. So we have a housing voucher program, but when people are not able to use those vouchers because of discrimination from where their income came from, this really presents a hard stop in making use of those vouchers. So House Bill 20-1332 helped to address this discrimination gap with the housing vouchers. However, as with anything, it needs to be enforced for it to be valuable. Next part, vulnerability, trust, and community all play into this next area. Please go to the next one. So one of the groups described people who are experiencing homelessness as a lack of community. And this came up in many ways. Please continue. So all three of these we combined into this area. How might we support persistent engagement by providers, consistency of service or care across providers, and build trust in providers to be able to reach and help all people before that help is critical. So one of the things we saw that from some of the groups that are really effective in this area, experience and peer-led approaches. They're using people from that community to help address some of the needs in there. And then also that provides mentorship and a lot of value for those groups. Teaching them how to fish. So in addition to providing their immediate needs, groups are able to provide training, counseling, and continued guidance for mental, physical, and financial health long-term. And I cannot stress this point enough. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Many people have asked, what's the solution? Unfortunately, it varies depending on the individual. And if we're going to attack this problem as a community, we need to really understand it to a greater degree and all the different people who are affected by this, whether they're youth, senior citizens, economic-based, domestic violence victims, families, veterans, all of them have different needs. Staffing, this came up many times as well. And here, how might we innovate staffing models and funding models of homelessness providers to enhance the quality and consistency of services delivered by skilled professionals, including long-term case management? We saw a lot of groups that saw value in their ability to collaborate with like-minded providers and share resources and connect so that they could reduce the duplication of efforts. Some groups also were fostering entrepreneurship, which you'll see in our case studies a little later, and providing long-term solutions that help to offset program costs and provide job training and skills development for certain types of individuals experiencing homelessness. And more solutions, frankly, here are needed. We need to find better ways of keeping talented individuals in this space. Trust. This is obviously a big issue and has come up in several spaces, but this is a very specific one here. So clear and equitable requirements. How might we improve the clarity, consistency, and equity of eligibility requirements for services? Equitable, transparent, and consistent entry to services. Many of these programs are mired with lots of forms and processes that make it difficult to navigate and take long periods of time. Self-navigation tools, letting people find find ways to meet the needs that they have and helping them to find those things on their own would help reduce some of the cost and time spent from some of these groups. Gathering, sharing, and using data better. You're going to see this again and again, but there are some great efforts underway, just started, that from Built for Zero and other, and a large kind of group within the state that are starting to build this data. And the more we can get a consistent approach to data importance, methods of gathering, and making it widely accessible to all the groups that need it, the better we're going to be able to meet those needs. And then finally in this section, decriminalization. This was something that we saw in reducing some of the negative impact on individuals who are experiencing homelessness, who are given tickets or warrants based on nonviolent offenses. There's been some processes already that have helped to really reduce the cost and the time spent chasing down these types of offenses. Collaboration and coordination, of course, a huge issue across the board. How might coordination and collaboration between providers and government agencies for those experiencing homelessness be enhanced, including data transparency, human-centered data collection methods, and marketing or outreach efforts to build awareness? So there's been some good information that we received about work during the pandemic with the Homelessness Leadership Council and convening of the provider community However, this needs to be something that is implicit in our community and not just as a result of a pandemic, but making sure that these groups are able to regularly convene, share resources, share effective approaches, and build their voice together will strengthen their effectiveness. City, county, and state unity. There is a disconnected and differentiated approach in terms of helping those who are experiencing homelessness across our cities, counties, and state. The better leadership that we have and convening of these different groups in order to tackle this issue, the more effective we're going to see that coalesce. Again, as I promised, gathering, sharing, and using data better. Being able to gather that data will really help to amplify efforts. And lastly, technology access and expectations. This is increasingly a big part of our of the general public's life. And of course, it affects those who are experiencing homelessness as well. So how might access to critical online or electronic information be improved for those without reliable or consistent technology access? First, recognizing the challenge. So when we come up with solutions that are increasingly tech-based, how does that immediately remove users from being able to access things? Cloud-based, digital, and innovative information storage and sharing. There are some programs that allow for cloud-based storage of personal documents, digital lockers, and some of these processes are underway and are being tested and will help with keeping a lot of extra work out of the provider side. And then still gathering, sharing, and using data better. If all these groups are able to share data, able to access it, and have a consensus on how that data is gathered and what's important, they're really going to be able to work more closely together. That said, I really hope behind each one of those elements is a lot of information, and I really hope you take a look at that in context in our report, and I look forward to your questions.
Great, thank you, Dan. I'm going to jump in and talk about some of the case studies that we did to try to tie into and supplement the work that Dan's team did. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. One of them was the Community First Village, which is operated by Mobile Loaves and Fishes outside of Austin, Texas. It's a large master plan community. This really ties in with that key finding that Dan's team found about the importance of community, and that it's really a factor that when leveraged can promote successful outcomes. And that's what this community has found by providing work and amenities on site and having and really building community. They have over around 86% retention from their population, which are formerly chronically homeless individuals who have formerly been experiencing homelessness in a chronic manner. And again, seeing really good outcomes for that particular population. We can go ahead to the next slide. One of the other case studies we looked at was the Ready to Work program operating out of Boulder and Aurora here in Colorado. And this program is really one of those slides that Dan had around kind of teaching to fish, that there are some programs that provide for immediate needs and then also are providing training, access to work and employment and savings, as well as counseling and support services. And they, within a year, graduate individuals from this program, and they have a strong graduation rate, and then they have over 80% of their graduates who are still housed and employed within 12 months after graduation. Go to the next slide. The Urban Peak program and the program that's on the next slide are both really getting at that idea that Dan mentioned around there's no one size fits all. And in fact, what we see is that providers who are specializing in serving very different segments of the population are finding success by tailoring their programs to those specific needs. Urban Peak being one that addresses the very real needs for many of our youth and many of our youth coming out of our foster care system, and have strong results and ROI with an annual savings of around $8.4 million to the community, and with youth earning higher wages, achieving stable housing, having access to healthcare, all because of being served by Urban Peak. You can go to the next slide, please. On the other end of the age spectrum, we had the Senior Support Services Program, which is really targeted to those who are experiencing homelessness as seniors within our community. And this provides them with a safe place as a day center to meet one another, to get access to meals, transportation, food, and medical care, and to really be in a kind of wraparound support for this particular population. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. And so those 4 case studies are highlighted in our report. We urge you to take a closer look at those. And then we also had a guest author, Peter Lafari, who wrote in housing affordability. And he really looks at the supply side of this issue and the shortage that we have in our rental home market for extremely low and low income Coloradans, that we have over 160,000 low income renters paying 50% of their income for rent. And the target being around 54,000 new units annually would have to be built over the next 5 years to really catch this market back up and to provide more affordable housing for Coloradans who are experiencing or having low or extremely low incomes. Peter also explains the Biden administration's plan, House America, and describes kind of the efforts that are underway both federally and at the state level. So urge you to check out that brief by guest author Peter Lafari. And lastly, we just want to thank our partners who have come together to support this effort. That we really believe there's a wealth of information in this report. There's a lot more details, as Dan said, within this report. And we really believe that this can spark a conversation for next steps around how we better improve outcomes for individuals experiencing homelessness. We genuinely thank all of our partners in this effort. And I'm going to hand it back over to Kristen, who's going to facilitate questions and answers.
Great. We will take any questions if you have any at this moment for Dan or Brenda. Let's see, Hannah, can you repeat why you chose to consolidate phase 2 and phase 3? It was mostly a timing and capacity issue, Hannah. Phase 3, once we started digging into phase 2 and building the systems map, we realized that really was how we were going to visually show the entire map. And so phase 3 was going to be that interactive tool on the website. So instead of doing that at a separate point down the road, we decided to just bring that into phase 2 so that you could visually see it all. Any other questions? Ed, there are a lot of recommendations here. What needs to be done first to get change started, and who, government or nonprofit sector, needs to do it? Dan, Brenda? Oh, Dan, you're muted.
Couldn't be Zoom without saying you're muted at least once, right? So I wish I could say that there was one starting point, but all these things need to happen. There are people that are experiencing this right now, every day. And I think some of the biggest areas, like I said, the housing piece, now that comes as a result of strong leadership at every level and removing barriers to zoning and different processes that slow down the housing. Our community itself coming together and saying, hey, we want to really address this problem, and we want to be on board to make sure that the policy changes and things that are either already in place or about to be made are going to support that type of effort. In addition, collaboration and supporting people who are already doing great work within the community, amplifying their efforts. So we mentioned Built for Zero is doing some great work. We know that the Homelessness Leadership Council and their convening with and kind of bringing together a lot of those groups has really been helping. So it's all at once, unfortunately. And when we look at a system, we don't look at one specific point. We're looking at everything and how it affects each other. So those are some of the, like I said, the biggest areas is that housing piece and some of the leadership and collaboration that needs to happen.
I would just echo Dan's point on the collaboration. I think that you saw throughout his slides that was something that really came up in every single one of the sets of recommendation, was that there needs to be more leadership and collaboration among all these different sectors. The other need that we saw as we were digging into this work really was the need for better data and transparency around the data. And again, you saw that come up over and over in Dan's key findings as he and his team at CU Denver went through the systems mapping. Brenda, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that this systems level view really does give us an idea of the key leverage points that are throughout the whole system we can push on, and those can all happen simultaneously or in stages. And I think to Dan's point, there can be some that start right away. There could be others that maybe take longer. And to Kristen's point, the lack of leadership in this space, that I think that's something that could be addressed immediately and could be addressed in collaboration with government and nonprofit in thinking about how do we better kind of coordinate and provide a leadership of this space versus kind of others that might be, the technology piece. Perhaps that is something that we can bring in other partners like Amazon or other industry and tech partners to help us kind of move the needle on data.
And there are some great pullouts to that point, Brenda, within the report. Tatiana, how long did it take to complete all of this work from start to finish? And is this the last phase, or do you anticipate more work on this topic? Brenda?
Yes, we started this project back in probably conceptually in January and have been working on it for the bulk of this calendar year. We don't anticipate releasing anything formally from this, but we do hope that there will be some more conversations that we can have with the communities and with policy leaders, and we welcome the opportunity to do that.
Dan, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, the work isn't done. We still have a problem in our community with people experiencing homelessness. And I really hope to continue working with groups that are both on the provider side and then helping to figure out how to add more value in this space. So I think, we have a lot more work to do. This was our initial scope of work that we took on, but obviously we've learned a lot, and we're looking forward to helping bring that to the fore in solutions coming forward.
And this has been a great community partnership with CU Denver and Common Sense Institute as a research organization that's dedicated to the protection and promotion of Colorado's economy and individual opportunity. I think that as we look down the path at research priorities, at least for Common Sense Institute, I'm sure that homelessness will come up again in 2022. And so it might be an opportunity then to revisit a component of this report or do some, further deeper dives onto different sets of the recommendations as well. But for this year, these two phases are really the cohesive research that we are conducting. Hannah asks, what are the next steps now that both phases of the report are complete? Dan, Brenda?
Well, we certainly hope that it helps to inform groups, obviously the providers in this space, and many of the people who are working in this every day. This is common knowledge for them as to how these things are working. But the general public and the community, we all have a part in helping to alleviate this problem and understand it to a greater degree. So we're hoping with education, more people are able to make informed decisions around policy and around how they interact with this issue. So I hope that the community takes it from here and does something to help alleviate the situation.
Brenda?
Yes, I think there are some actionable items that came out of this report that we're hopeful that organizations will take upon themselves to work on or come together collaboratively to think about. And again, we're kind of happy to be thought partners in that event, in those conversations moving forward.
Any final questions? Thank you again for joining us this morning. For those of you that did log your email in the chat, we will make sure to get you the recording of this conversation and release today. Please download, check out the full report at commonsenseinstituteco.org. There's also a link to the CU Denver full systems map there too. And I know that Dan and Brenda would be welcome resources if you have any additional questions as you go through the report. Thank you.